My mother-in-law ordered me to eat in the kitchen, but when the mayor walked in, she nearly collapsed. The Grant family's Thanksgiving dinner was a dazzling display of excessive wealth, all polished silverware, antique china, and suffocating formality. I approached the endless mahogany table, carrying my signature sweet potato casserole, a dish I had poured hours of effort into, hoping it might finally earn me a sliver of genuine respect. My heart was thumping with a nervous blend of excitement and trepidation. My mother-in-law, Victoria, intercepted me with a look of pure, cutting disdain. "That's homemade?" she asked, her voice laced with unconcealed disgust, implying that anything touched by my hands was inherently common. Before I could formulate a defensive response, she made a dismissive, sharp gesture to the maid standing nearby. "Please, prepare a seat for Maya in the kitchen. Staff, you see, simply can't dine with guests," Victoria announced loudly, and a terrible wave of cold, polite laughter rippled across the table. I froze, the casserole dish suddenly feeling scalding hot in my grip. Humiliation burned through my entire body as every eye, including Eric's, watched me silently retrieve my plate. The walk toward the kitchen door felt like a public execution of my dignity. The massive, industrial-grade kitchen felt like a tomb of stainless steel and cold, white tile. I sat alone on a high, hard wooden stool, the joyful, sophisticated sounds of clinking crystal and chatter from the dining room forming a painful, mocking soundtrack to my isolation. I set my rejected plate down, staring at the swinging door, praying that Eric, my husband, would walk through it and finally put a stop to the cruelty. But he never did. The only company I had was Mr. Henry, the head chef, who was frantically polishing dessert spoons. He refused to meet my gaze, offering only a mumbled, awkward apology. "Sorry, ma'am," he murmured, his hands shaking slightly. "I truly just work here, and I can't interfere." His simple admission was a profound confirmation of my status. I wasn't just treated like a servant. I was valued less than one, as he at least had a clear, respectable role. I looked at the beautiful, untouched food, which had turned to ash in my mouth, and whispered the crushing truth, the full weight of my shattered marriage settling on my shoulders. Apparently, so do I. Victoria's sharp, confident voice sliced easily through the thin door, confirming my absolute betrayal. I told Eric he clearly married beneath his station. She was declaring to her guests, her tone thick with smug, classist authority. "He needs someone with genuine pedigree. Just look at her. She's so ordinary, so utterly forgettable in a setting like this." The words felt like physical blows, cruel and targeted, crushing the last vestiges of my hope. I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to calm the painful, frantic hammering of my heart. I had sacrificed my identity, my career, and my passion to join this family, and their reward was to label me as a piece of forgettable furniture. The sting of the public rejection quickly crystallized into a hard, cold, unyielding fury. I refused to cry another tear. My eyes dried quickly as I promised myself that I would not only make them regret those words, but I would use my earned power to ensure that Victoria and Eric would never, ever forget me. The intensity of my fury triggered a sharp, painful recollection of the life I had surrendered. Before meeting Eric, my existence was loud, meaningful, and purposeful. I was an active community organizer, tirelessly fighting for housing security and vital resources for the city's marginalized families. I wore practical clothes, worked with my hands, and was deeply valued for my impact. But when I married into the Grant family, I was quietly coerced into giving up my passion, my purpose, and my professional identity to fit their suffocatingly wealthy and silent mold. I learned to host quiet parties and manage a pristine household, believing this was the price of acceptance. Now, sitting alone on that stool, staring at the cold remnants of my dinner, the devastating truth hit me. I hadn't merely adjusted for them. I had systematically erased the most authentic, powerful parts of myself. They didn't want a partner. They wanted a flawless, voiceless accessory. That was the moment I chose to stop playing their game and knew I had to reclaim the life and the power they had stolen from me. The accumulated betrayal finally exploded into a volatile confrontation with Eric later that evening in our massive, sterile bedroom. "Why didn't you stop them? You just stood there and let your mother shame me in front of everyone," I demanded, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. Eric, the picture of passive-aggressive martyrdom, barely glanced up from his phone. He sighed heavily, shifting the blame entirely onto me. "You are the one who overreacted, Maya. It was just a stupid joke about social standing. You know how my mother is. You need to learn to relax and cooperate." His utter indifference was the final, irreversible betrayal. "No, Eric. I don't care how your mother is anymore," I retorted, the calm in my voice colder than ice. I am learning how you are, a coward who chooses his family's superficial status over his wife's basic dignity. I knew the marriage was irrevocably over. As I backed away from him, my phone buzzed with an unexpected email, a direct lifeline from my past that felt like destiny. If you feel like my journey to justice is just beginning, hit subscribe for more true revenge stories. The unexpected email was a beacon in the darkness of my shattered marriage. It came from Mayor Daniels, the one person in the city who had consistently respected my capabilities and vision as a community leader. My hands were visibly shaking as I read the subject line. Long time, Maya. Need your help urgently for the city initiative. I immediately opened the message, a long-forgotten hope surging through my chest. The mayor explained in detail that the city's massive social renewal program, the same project I had helped outline and launch before my restrictive marriage, had completely collapsed. He wrote that it was failing due to a severe lack of on-the-ground experience and a genuine disconnect from the community it was meant to serve. He remembered my efficiency, my uncompromising honesty, and my natural ability to connect with everyday people. Reading his words, which spoke of my profound value and necessity to the city, felt like a powerful, immediate antidote to Victoria's poison. This was not just a job offer. It was a clear and sanctioned path to reclaiming my entire life, my public identity, and a legitimate form of influence that the Grant family could never deny. I knew this was the start of my revenge. The very next day, I drove straight to the mayor's downtown office, trading the suffocating silence of the Grant mansion for a place where people actually worked with real purpose. Mayor Daniels greeted me with an enthusiastic warmth and professional respect that was a stunning contrast to the Grant's cold, calculated sincerity. Maya, I am genuinely relieved you answered, he said, shaking my hand with an empowering grip. The social renewal program is near collapse. We need your practical knowledge and your ability to earn the community's trust. I need you to revitalize it as our new Director of Outreach. The powerful title, Director of Outreach, resonated deep within me, officially acknowledging my true talents and purpose. The confident, professional woman I had muted for Eric's sake surged back to life. I was no longer defined by Eric's family name or Victoria's shallow judgments. I was officially a key, respected leader in the city's highest office. My newfound resolve hardened into a strategic plan. I would leverage this power, not only to rebuild the city's broken promises, but to systematically dismantle the entire Grant family's false, hypocritical perception of my worth. The game was on. I immediately accepted the director role, but with one critical condition. My powerful appointment had to remain an absolute secret. I knew Victoria's viciousness and her expansive network. She would use every tactic at her disposal to crush my career the moment she realized I held real, sanctioned influence over their financial interests. Thus began my thrilling, high-stakes double life. To the Grant family, I maintained the facade of a quiet, harmless, and slightly bored housewife. I told them I was simply engaged in simple, volunteer work at a small, nondescript charity, a quaint, time-consuming hobby to fill my empty days. But at night and during the work week, I was the city's Director of Outreach, managing complex city strategy meetings, overseeing multi-million-dollar budgets, and working in close confidence with the city council. I was purposefully building a public career so successful and so profound that the devastating memory of the kitchen stool would eventually become the ultimate, undeniable contrast to my achieved success. I was meticulously gathering the most powerful form of ammunition, irrefutable public achievement and political influence. Completely blind to the profound, high-stakes game I was now skillfully playing, Victoria continued her pattern of thinly veiled contempt during the family's obligatory Sunday brunch. She addressed me with an air of patronizing pity, delicately slicing her expensive avocado toast. "Still playing with your little charity projects, Maya?" she inquired, her tone suggesting my efforts were merely a childish distraction. "It's such a quaint, time-consuming activity for a proper housewife, dear. I do hope it isn't taking up too much of your energy." Eric and his equally shallow sister tittered obediently at her familiar condescension. I maintained my perfectly serene, unbothered facade. "Something like that, Victoria," I replied calmly, carefully keeping my voice light and intentionally vague. She dismissed me instantly with a flick of her hand. "Good. Leave the real work, the tasks that truly involve power, influence, and substantial wealth, to the people who are actually capable of handling them with the requisite finesse." I looked directly into her arrogant, superior eyes and allowed a faint, knowing smile to touch my lips. "I'm working on acquiring those, too, Victoria. More closely than you could possibly imagine." Weeks later, The highly anticipated, formal invitation to the City Leadership Gala, the most exclusive and politically significant social event of the year, hosted personally by Mayor Daniels, arrived at the mansion. Victoria's deep vanity was instantly inflamed with excitement. She waved the heavy, gilt-edged card in triumph at the breakfast table. "We're invited, Eric. This is where the real networking and power conversations happen," she exclaimed, her mind already racing through her strategic social plans. She then glanced at me with the familiar, cold flicker of disdain. "You may attend, Maya, but try not to cause a scene or embarrass us this time. Just smile politely, look pretty, and stick to small, inoffensive topics when you speak." I watched her smug satisfaction, savoring the exquisite, painful irony of her command. She was meticulously preparing for a major social conquest based on illusion. I was quietly preparing for a devastating public execution of her social authority. I was not merely attending the gala, I was the central, public revelation, and the entire stage was already completely mine. Mayor Daniels called me the morning before the gala to finalize the most crucial detail, the timing of the announcement. "The room will be packed with the city's most influential people, including all the grants," he confirmed, his voice vibrating with excitement. "Your appointment has remained completely confidential. We're announcing the new program director just before my main speech, which means you'll be introduced at the height of the evening. Are you ready for the political equivalent of a social earthquake, Maya? Ready for the entire elite of the city to realize who is truly running the show?" I looked out my window at the towering cityscape, the power radiating from the buildings feeling like my own. I picture Victoria, perfectly coiffed and utterly self-satisfied, only to have the spotlight violently stolen by the daughter-in-law she had tried to silence. The anticipation was intoxicating, a physical rush of adrenaline. "I am beyond ready, Mr. Mayor," I replied, my voice completely steady and firm. "It is time to reveal the truth to those who only deal in lies." My personal revenge was about to become a public spectacle of my undeniable triumph. The preparation phase at the mansion was a final, insulting performance of the Grant family's obsession with superficial perfection. Victoria spared no expense, hiring renowned stylists and designers for herself and Eric's sister, meticulously debating the merits of every diamond and silk thread. She was determined to make them the centerpiece of the evening. When she finally turned her critical eye toward me, her gaze was cold and dismissive. "You need to wear something simple, Maya," she instructed with a wave of her hand. "We certainly don't want you to overshadow the family's presentation. People like you, darling, the charity type, should maintain a very subdued profile. Trying too hard always comes across as desperate." Her words were calculated to wound and shrink my ambition, but they merely fueled my resolve. I nodded, a faint, knowing smile playing on my lips. "I completely understand, Victoria," I assured her sweetly. "I'll make sure I stand out quietly. My presence will certainly be felt, in a way that has nothing to do with my dress." To my utter dismay, Victoria hosted a pretentious pre-gala dinner, which she brazenly labeled an etiquette refresher course, solely designed to find fault with me. She nitpicked every single detail of my behavior and presentation. She corrected my posture, criticized my subtle conversational style as lacking presence, and even scrutinized how I held my fork and sipped my water. She constantly reminded me that the Grant name demanded flawless perfection, and that I was consistently falling short. I sat through 2 agonizing hours of her patronizing instructions and the silent, cold judgment of the other guests. I offered minimal resistance, realizing that fighting back verbally was pointless. Instead, I used the time to observe and meticulously catalog every single insult. I was building an internal dossier, a detailed, painful record of their profound contempt. I knew this catalog of slights was far more valuable than any outward argument, as it would serve as the moral justification for the absolute revenge I was preparing to unleash upon them. The constant emotional battering and the pressure of my secret life led me to a final, desperate act, testing Eric's loyalty one last time. Late that evening, I pleaded with him. "They are tearing me apart, Eric. Your mother treats me like an embarrassment," I confessed, searching his eyes for any flicker of protective love. "Please, just tell them to stop." He reacted with his typical, infuriating self-absorption, sighing heavily and running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "You make things so difficult, Maya," he complained, shifting the blame entirely onto me. "They are just concerned with maintaining the best possible image for the family's business interests. Why can't you simply cooperate?" His complete failure to defend me was the final, irreversible nail in the coffin of our marriage. "You mean the best lie, Eric," I corrected him, my voice flat with finality. "I am done living in your mother's lie and your cowardice. I have chosen the truth. I realized then that my only true ally was my own earned success. I found my only real solace and strength in the mayor's office during the final preparations. Spending time there, away from the suffocating atmosphere of the mansion, was essential for my mental clarity. I pored over the blueprints of the new community housing and the official budgets, seeing my work everywhere. The walls were covered with photographs of the grateful families I had helped years ago, a powerful reminder of my true purpose. Mayor Daniels walked in as I was finalizing my speech notes. "You changed lives once, Maya," he noted, his gaze landing on a photo of my old team. "It is time to do it again, but this time, you will be doing it with the full authority and budget of the city government. And we are doing it publicly." I looked out over the thriving city skyline, the sheer scale of the power I was about to wield settling over me. I felt the purposeful, strong woman I truly was, confirming that my humiliation was merely the required step before my glorious, public triumph. For the gala, I ensured my attire was a profound, symbolic act of defiance against the grant's materialism. I completely bypassed the high-end designer boutiques that Victoria frequented. Instead, I wore an elegant, custom-made gown crafted from hand-stitched silk. This dress was not only beautiful, but it was also made by one of the talented seamstresses enrolled in the vocational training program I was about to launch, a silent, powerful statement of loyalty. When Victoria finally saw me dressed, her sneer was immediate and predictable. "Thrift store couture," she hissed, attempting to belittle my choice by equating non-designer clothing with poverty. I met her gaze with a perfectly calm, confident smile. "It's custom Victoria," I replied, my voice smooth and self-assured. "It's one of a kind. You wouldn't find this kind of genuine, quality work in any store you frequent, as it represents real effort, not just branding." The dress was my armor, a clear, silent declaration that my value came from authentic work, not from the label she worshipped. The moment of the grand entrance was the culmination of months of secret planning, and it was everything I had hoped for. As Eric and I stepped into the brightly lit foyer, the flash of the photographer's cameras was relentless. Victoria was already inside, waiting impatiently near the entrance, trying to position herself as the family matriarch to greet the mayor. When Mayor Daniels finally arrived, she waved emphatically, calling his name loudly to draw him toward her. But the mayor completely ignored her, walking straight past Victoria without a single acknowledgement. He stopped directly in front of me, his face beaming with genuine pride and enthusiasm. "Ah, my new director of outreach, you look exactly as spectacular as your work, Maya," he boomed, embracing me warmly. Victoria froze mid-wave, her triumphant smile dissolving into a look of absolute, sickening bewilderment. Eric sputtered, nearly choking on his pre-gala cocktail. The entire foyer immediately erupted in confused, excited whispers as my new, powerful title was announced. A profound, collective wave of shock pulsed through the gala attendees. Victoria stood rigidly, utterly paralyzed, her eyes wide with frantic disbelief as they darted between me, the mayor, and Eric, desperately searching for an explanation that did not exist. Guests began murmuring, rapidly connecting the grant name to the powerful city title. Eric, terrified and embarrassed, nervously tried to pull his mother toward a secluded wall, but she was incapable of moving. The mayor, completely unfazed by the social chaos he had just caused, turned to me and presented me with a heavy, solid plaque acknowledging my leadership. I accepted the award with a steady hand, feeling the immense weight of my earned achievement, a validation that far surpassed any approval the grants could offer. Victoria's entire, carefully constructed illusion of me as a harmless, charity-playing housewife had been utterly decimated, publicly and definitively, in front of the entire elite of the city. Mayor Daniels quickly took the main stage, tapping the microphone to get everyone's attention. "Tonight, we honor the true leaders who build the foundation of the city through dedicated service," he announced, his voice ringing through the ballroom. "Maya Grant has been quietly contributing to our success for years, and now, her exceptional compassion and vision will officially lead us forward as the head of our biggest social renewal program." The audience applauded enthusiastically. When it was my turn, I approached the podium, my gaze sweeping deliberately over the audience until it landed directly on the Disgraced grant table. "I am truly honored," I began, my voice clear and strong with purpose. "I believe that real influence isn't merely inherited through status or wealth. It is earned, not by sitting on a throne, but by rolling up your sleeves and serving the hands that build the city." The thunderous, sustained applause that followed was the sound of my moral and professional victory over the Grant family's superficial values. The devastating climax of the evening occurred moments after I stepped down from the stage. Victoria's forced composure completely evaporated, She gasped audibly, clutching her chest, and her expensive champagne glass slipped from her numb fingers, shattering loudly on the polished floor, a perfect metaphor for her broken world. Eric rushed to her side, his jaw clenched, and hissed an accusation at me as I passed. "You deliberately lied to me. You kept this a secret just to humiliate us in front of all these people." I paused, turning to face his panic and fury, my expression calm and utterly composed. "No, Eric," I said, my voice low but unwavering. "I never lied. I simply stopped explaining myself to people who had already decided I wasn't worth listening to or believing. The humiliation I had endured on Thanksgiving was now spectacularly avenged by the very public they held in such high regard. The Grant family's power had collapsed, and my rise was undeniable. The morning after the gala, the Grant mansion was eerily silent, but the outside world was ablaze with noise. The tabloids immediately seized upon the story, publishing explosive headlines that brought the Grant family's petty classism into relentless public scrutiny. Mayor's right-hand woman was banished to the kitchen by elite socialite Victoria Grant, the front pages screamed. The articles meticulously detailed the events of Thanksgiving, contrasting Victoria's snobbery with my dedication to community service. The public comment section online were overwhelmingly in my favor, celebrating my success, and ruthlessly condemning the Grant family's arrogance. Victoria's precious social standing, which she valued above her own family, was collapsing under the weight of public opinion. Unable to face the immense social and media fallout, she completely retreated, locking herself in her private wing of the mansion and refusing to answer any calls. Her carefully constructed facade of flawless respectability was utterly and irrevocably shattered. I decided that the most effective next step was to stage my victory right where my humiliation occurred. I promptly arranged to host a high-profile press brunch at the Grant mansion, utilizing the very rooms that symbolized their control. Victoria and Eric, terrified of the public condemnation that would follow their absence, were compelled to attend, their faces tight with misery and shame. This time, there was a profound difference. I sat confidently at the head of the long, illustrious dining table, the exact seat Victoria had always claimed as hers, and where I was explicitly forbidden from sitting. I addressed the assembled reporters and city officials with a calm, commanding presence. "Please," I announced, gesturing toward the beautiful food spread. "Help yourselves. The kitchen's free today for all guests." The irony was sharp, public, and perfectly aimed, causing Victoria to visibly flinch at the deliberate, painful reference to my banishment. During the high-profile press brunch, a tenacious reporter seized an opportunity to corner Victoria, armed with a microphone and a relentless camera crew. "How does it feel, Mrs. Grant, having your daughter-in-law, the mayor's top appointee, directly in your family?" the reporter pressed. Victoria forced a sickly, desperate laugh, trying desperately to frame my success as a quaint, acceptable hobby. "We are, of course, absolutely proud of her charitable heart," she stammered, attempting to minimize my authority. The reporter, fully aware of my real power, delivered the professional blow with surgical precision. "She's not just charity, ma'am. She is your direct superior. She now holds a pivotal seat on the City Council committee that holds ultimate review and approval over your family company's massive new construction permits." Victoria's face paled instantly as she realized my power wasn't just social or symbolic. It was tangible and directly threatened her family's entire financial operation. The camera stayed focused on her collapse until the reporter calmly walked away. Later that day, Eric confronted me privately, his usual arrogance completely replaced by panicked fear. "You must stop this immediately, Maya. You are actively destroying the family's reputation and financial interests," he demanded, attempting to revert to his old controlling habits. I looked at him, feeling absolutely nothing but cold finality. "You already destroyed the family name for me, Eric," I replied, my voice steady and unwavering. "The day you chose to stay silent and allowed your mother to treat me like a piece of refuse. My decision was absolute. I informed him that my moving company was already on its way. I picked up the keys to my new apartment, a beautiful space closer to my City Hall office and worlds away from his cold indifference. I am leaving, Eric. You can have your quiet, sterile comfort back, but I will not be a part of it." My departure was not a retreat. It was a powerful, deliberate act of reclaiming my life and my independence. The fallout from the gala provided the perfect fuel for my next strategic move. Mayor Daniels was delighted with the overwhelming public support for my integrity. "You didn't just expose them, Maya. You turned your personal humiliation into a massive public mandate for change," he told me during our debriefing. "The grants are secured, and we are increasing your platform. I'm offering you a significant raise and a larger, more comprehensive budget. This wasn't merely a professional advancement, it was the ultimate vindication. My power was now officially institutionalized. Then let's make it truly count, I replied, knowing the time for symbolism was over. The real revenge was not the public shaming, but the constructive, undeniable use of my new authority. I was ready to use my office to help the very communities the Grants had ignored or displaced, making my success a permanent, profound counter-narrative to their entire existence. My next city initiative was calculated to strike directly at the core of the Grant family's unethical business practices. I orchestrated the launch of a massive citywide program dedicated to feeding low-income families, intentionally setting the main event in the exact, neglected neighborhood where Victoria's construction company had callously displaced residents years ago for a luxury development. It was an unmistakable, public act of correcting the damage her family had wrought. The event immediately drew massive media attention, highlighting the stark contrast between their greed and my genuine service. As a clear statement of institutional support, my first guest speaker, addressing the grateful community members with dignity and respect, was Mayor Daniels himself. The sight of me, the former Grant daughter-in-law, publicly dedicating resources to the community her family had harmed, was the ultimate, undeniable form of poetic justice. I was actively reversing their legacy, turning their shame into tangible community success. The culmination of my strategic revenge was a perfectly engineered public moment. I sent a formal, official invitation to both Eric and Victoria, making my expectations clear. "Come eat with us," the card simply stated. Despite their profound embarrassment, they were forced to attend, knowing that refusing my official request would only incite further, more damaging media speculation. They arrived expecting a small, quiet, charitable luncheon. Instead, they walked into a massive, bustling community celebration, a public event teeming with happy, grateful families, high-ranking city leaders, and an overwhelming presence of television cameras and reporters. They were completely cornered, unable to leave without creating an even larger spectacle, and were compelled to sit uncomfortably in the front row, forced to witness my triumph. This was no longer a personal feud, it was a public masterclass in how earned influence overrules inherited status. Midway through the high-profile event, I put on a clean apron and deliberately walked to the community serving line. I personally served a plate of hot, nourishing food to an elderly couple, a powerful, humbling moment of genuine service that was instantly captured by every camera present. Then, I performed the final, definitive act of my revenge. I turned and looked directly at Victoria, who was watching me with a look of profound, devastating shame. I spoke clearly into the microphone, so my voice would carry throughout the entire venue and onto the evening news. "Remember when I was asked to eat in the kitchen?" I asked the crowd, my voice ringing with moral authority and quiet power. "I want everyone here to know that it turns out that the kitchen is precisely where real respect, dignity, and a commitment to service are truly cooked and earned." The crowd's reaction was immediate, profound, and overwhelmingly supportive. The mayor, the city council members, and every community attendee rose to their feet in a powerful, unified standing ovation. They were applauding my success, my integrity, and the definitive takedown of classism. Victoria's forced composure completely collapsed. Her eyes filled with tears, not of malice, but of deep, genuine shame as she realized the true depth of her error and the public exposure of her cruelty. I watched her humiliation, not with satisfaction, but with a quiet sense of peace. I had achieved my revenge not by fighting them on their own terms, but by transcending them through service and success. I had forced her to confront her own humanity in the most public and undeniable way possible. The power of my earned dignity was absolute. The final, lasting hammer blow to the Grant family's prestige landed the next morning. A powerful article, complete with a photograph of me serving food and Victoria's visibly disgraced face in the background, swept the entire nation. The headline confirmed my victory, becoming a symbol of empowerment for thousands. Daughter-in-law they made eat in the kitchen now runs the city's most powerful program. The public reckoning was absolute and permanent. The Grant family name was now irrevocably linked with outdated classist cruelty, and my name was permanently cemented as an emblem of earned influence, integrity, and meritocracy. The chapter of their domination was closed, and my rise was indisputable. The devastating public exposure brought profound consequences for Eric. Unable to endure the shame and the financial instability now facing the family firm, he made the dramatic choice to resign from his executive position. This was a spectacular fall from grace, and his departure was widely reported in the press. In a rare act of genuine humility, he issued a public apology, acknowledging his failure. I must confess that I prioritize my mother's superficial standards over my wife's true character, his statement read. I completely forgot what real dignity looked like until my wife, Maya, showed me the difference through her actions. He contacted me, pleading for forgiveness, but I remained distant. His apology was necessary for the public record, but the pain of his past indifference was too deep to heal quickly. I had secured the truth. Now he had to find his own path to redemption, separate from mine. My demonstrated integrity and decisive leadership during the crisis did not go unnoticed by the city's political establishment. My story, moving from social humiliation to massive civic success, served as a powerful testament to the value of genuine character. Shortly after the public reckoning, Mayor Daniels called me into his office with exciting news. Your appointment as director was a brilliant success, Maya, he announced, beaming. Now, the city council needs your unique, community-focused perspective. We are officially appointing you to the City Council of Social Development. I accepted the prestigious appointment immediately. I had transcended my previous role. I was no longer merely overseeing a program. I was now a key decision-maker, able to shape the very laws and resource allocations of the city. My power was now absolute, allowing me to effect change on a scale the Grant family could never have imagined. A few weeks after my council appointment, Victoria, looking visibly aged and stripped of her signature arrogance, appeared unannounced at my new, bustling City Hall office. She was dressed plainly, devoid of her usual extravagant jewelry. Maya, may I please sit down? She asked, her voice quiet and almost broken. She offered a profound, sincere confession. I have spent the last few weeks in isolation, and I realize now how deeply flawed my values were. I was wrong about you. I thought true class only meant inherited money and social status. I looked at the powerful woman who had once dismissed me and felt only pity, not malice. It means respect, Victoria, I replied, my voice carrying the steady authority of my position. It means respect for everyone, regardless of their background or wealth. And that, I can assure you, is something you can never buy. The final, symbolic act of redemption involved the mansion itself. I organized a massive, televised community fundraiser for my foundation, strategically holding the event at Victoria's sprawling home. I personally invited the city's underprivileged families, key city leaders, and my new council colleagues. The mansion, which had once been a cold symbol of exclusion, was now transformed into a vibrant center of unity and charity. The atmosphere was filled with genuine joy and shared purpose. I ensured that the same kitchen and the same long, formal dining table that had separated me from the elite were now actively shared by all attendees, from the mayor to the families from the displaced neighborhood. It was a beautiful, powerful reversal of the Thanksgiving humiliation, turning the house into a symbol of shared humanity. The transformation of the Grant estate into a community hub was a media sensation. The front page of the city's leading newspaper cemented my triumph and the new narrative. The powerful headline read, "From kitchen stool to council seat, Maya Grant's unstoppable rise against classism." My personal victory was now woven into the fabric of the city's history, standing as an enduring symbol of how integrity and public service could ultimately defeat arrogance and inherited wealth. The era of the Grant's unchecked social power was definitively over, replaced by the legitimacy of earned influence. To ensure my legacy would extend far beyond political victories, I officially launched the Table Project, a powerful foundation dedicated to giving marginalized women second chances, providing them with job training, mentorship, and vital financial resources. The foundation's core slogan, a direct echo of the pain I had endured, was simple, profound, and deeply resonant. Everyone deserves a seat. The foundation quickly grew into a national success, built entirely on the principle that worth is earned through dedicated work and that no person should ever be dismissed based on their background. My humiliation had been successfully transformed into a lasting, constructive movement for justice and empowerment. Eric, now humbled and focused on genuine self-improvement, approached me seeking purpose. He offered to volunteer his time and skills to the Table Project. He was quiet, respectful, and diligently worked at menial tasks, focusing entirely on genuine service and making amends for his past failures. I allowed him to volunteer, acknowledging his efforts toward repentance and finding his own path. We worked together as effective professional partners within the foundation, rebuilding parts of the city that his firm had neglected. However, I maintained a strict emotional and physical distance. While he was working hard toward redemption, the personal relationship that Victoria's cruelty and Eric's silence had ruined could never be rebuilt, nor should it be. During one of the foundation's large community-serving events held at the former mansion, Victoria approached me as I was working in the serving line. She quietly knelt beside me as I was plating a meal for a homeless veteran. I watched her, waiting. "I finally understand, Maya," she whispered, her voice thick with genuine emotion and deep regret. "My actions were despicable. Serving others doesn't make you lesser. It makes you profoundly and beautifully human." I stopped my work and looked at her, seeing for the first time not the arrogant tyrant, but a broken woman finally confronting her humanity. I simply nodded softly, accepting the apology that she had clearly earned through genuine change. It was a moment of true, quiet closure. Mayor Daniels later hosted a special ceremony to recognize my achievements. He presented me with the City Medal of Honor for my extraordinary public service and unimpeachable integrity. "This medal is for your outstanding leadership, Councilwoman Grant," he declared to the cheering crowd. "But more importantly, it is for your exceptional character, for the way you transformed your personal humiliation into an empowering movement that has redefined the standards of leadership in this city." The sustained, thunderous applause that followed affirmed that my victory was not just a political achievement, it was a profound, inspiring moral triumph for the entire community. Years later, I walked alone through the kitchen of the former Grant Mansion, which now served as the bustling national headquarters of the Table Project. I paused by the exact spot where that cold, wooden stool once stood. I was no longer the banished wife. I was a city councilwoman, a successful CEO, and a respected leader. The space was now full of purpose, life, and laughter. My final thoughts, the quiet summation of my hard-won journey, formed the perfect closure. They told me to eat in the kitchen, so I didn't just walk away and allow their contempt to define me. I didn't seek revenge through petty destruction. Instead, I built a much bigger, more inclusive table, and I made them all proud to finally sit at it. Thank you for following my story to its final, satisfying conclusion. If my journey inspired you to fight for your dignity and worth, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of the Table Project in the comments.